Congratulations on your desire to train and develop your people in this important skill of making good outgoing phone calls. Here's a few points on how you can make sure this training session goes well. As best as possible, what we've tried to do in this video is to cover all the important points regarding how to structure a call to maximize its effectiveness. Now, inevitably, something will be missing for some people. They'll want to know, well, what do you say when the client says this, or how do you respond if the client doesn't respond the way we have depicted here in the video? Well, that's obviously going to happen. Every call is going to be different because every call is to a different person that's going to respond differently to the questions and statements we make in a different way. The important thing is to have a plan that should be effective for most people, and that's what we've tried to do. As a facilitator, remind people that you're simply trying to give them some tools that will increase their odds of success. Acknowledge that it might not ever be perfect, but these habits will tip things in your favor. Especially once the call gets into selling over the phone, I'll remind everybody that when you get to that point in the call, you're going through your entire sales process. Interview, selection, presentation, building added value, asking for a decision. We have a 2-day course that covers all of that, and we've attempted to address here is just how best to start these calls to get somebody into the position where they can execute on their sales process. If they don't have a sales process, then obviously they're going to need more training. This course is designed to be a self-study, or it can be enhanced to become a group training session. So how can you make this training more interactive? Well, anytime you get your team participating, you're going to make the material more interactive and increase the retention of the material. The breaks that will allow for more interactions or practice will take additional time. You can decide on what will be best for your team, depending on course of how much time you have available. What follows are a few ideas about where the natural breaks are that you can take during the sessions to brainstorm ideas with your team. The first break you can do is right before the discussion about why call. We've listed 6 reasons to call, but your team may come up with more. You could easily turn this into a breakout where you put the team into small groups, giving them the assignment to list all the reasons why we would want to call our renewals. Get them to focus on not just why it's good for your company, but on why the client would benefit from the call. You could give another group the assignment of coming up with a list of what we are saying to our clients by not calling them about the renewal. We find this tremendously effective in training because you end up with the team getting clear in their own minds the benefits of calling and the risks associated with not calling. The only thing better than you telling them why these calls are important is them telling themselves why they're important. People don't argue with their own data. Second break you can do is after the section on inviting a person into the branch, you can break out to ask the team how they feel about that. See, if they have roadblocks in their minds or regarding branch process that's going to cause them to question this strategy, it's best to deal with it before you get into the scripting. If they're not on board with the objective of trying to get the client to come into the branch, where appropriate, of course, but they won't be invested in the training to learn how to script a call to accomplish that objective. And if for some reason asking clients to come into the branch is not your company's objective, then you can simply skip ahead to the section where we talk about what to say if the client doesn't want to come in. Another opportunity for a breakout discussion is before the message on preparing for the call. Same concept as before. It's better if you can get them to list all of the things they would want to do to feel prepared for a call, then it's their information. Have a discussion about what screens to look at in the banking system, what information they should be looking for. Also make sure to discuss what is too much preparation. You want to be on guard for people that will procrastinate on making calls and they're using preparation as their excuse. A major breakout can occur after the section outlining the 4 steps to a good introduction. Frequently in training when we do this, we break people into small groups of 3 to 5 people and ask them to script out what they would say and or ask for each of these steps. The process of discussion in a group setting and coming up with a consensus on what to say is invaluable to helping people understand the concepts. Finally, an important part of this training will be to practice what they've developed and learned. Most of what will make these calls successful will be how comfortable and natural the caller sounds. When they sound confident, like they know what they're doing, and they're calling to help, the calls are met with much more success. How do they gain that confidence? Well, you can either have them practice on the client or practice with each other. Personally, I would not let my team get on the phones until I know they have a good plan on how to lead the conversation where they want it to go, and that they were reasonably skilled at doing so. Too often we find these calls are treated as something to get through. The goal is to complete the list and not necessarily to serve the client. Well, we think that's horrible service. These calls could be the only time a client is in contact with your financial institution this year. Make them count. Have your team fully prepared by practicing. Here's a few tips for role-playing these calls. 1, use a phone. If you can't use a phone, turn their chairs around so they can't see each other. When you're on the phone, you can't see the client. So for role-playing purposes, make it more realistic by doing the same. 2, have the person playing the client be agreeable for the first few attempts. The point is to build somebody's confidence and to practice the skills. Too often we find the person playing the role of the client tries to trip the caller up and be the worst case client possible just so they can say they won. Control that as a leader. Again, the goal behind the practice sessions is to build confidence. So the first few attempts are always successful, regardless of how poorly the caller performs or regardless of how unlikely it would be that a real client would go along with the call. Repetition is the key. Once they start to sound more natural, you can have the person playing the client to be a little tougher, but not at the beginning. 3, take time to debrief. Let them talk about what's working, what's not working. Eliminate the objection that role-playing is not natural. Okay? Acknowledge that it's not like calling a real person. We all get that. But that's not an excuse not to practice. Remind them of the rules associated with practice sessions like this. They can call a timeout if it's not going well and start again, right? They can't do that on a call with a client, not without sounding really silly. You know, I like to say to people in training, okay, so I know it's not natural, this role-playing, but the whole point is to get comfortable and know more or less what you're going to say. Do you mean to tell me that you can't come up with the questions, what to say here while we practice? Even though you can read the scripts, call timeout, start again if you want, you can't do that, but then magically when you're on a live call with a client, all those things are just going to pop into your head and it's all going to be perfect, right? I don't think so. So acknowledge that practicing can be difficult, but don't take the bait that it's impossible. Many times it's just an excuse for not wanting to challenge themselves. The 5th thing you can do to make role-playing a little bit better is to have them play both roles, the client and the caller. So thank you for using this training resource. Take advantage of the coaching resource that's included, which has lots of examples and additional information that's going to help this training session be even more effective. And if you need additional help or clarification on any of the content, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'd love to hear from you.